Hi, my name is Siona, and I am going to give a presentation on the ways that I can create a more complex, rich, integrated, and inquiry-based experience that reflects the educational principles of the Reggio Emilia approach in my own context. So just starting a little bit about who I am. I have done preschool for the last 5 years. I've taken the last year a bit off to teach kids gymnastics in a different sort of educational setting. And starting in the fall, I'm going to be moving to Denver, Colorado, and starting to teach in a Reggio Emilia preschool. I have taught in a Reggio Emilia preschool before. It was for about 8 months 2 years ago, and it absolutely changed my world, and it is the reason why I'm interested in teaching Reggio Emilia again and having it be a part of my life and a part of my career that I don't plan on steering away from at any point. This is something that I see myself doing for a lifetime. So me having the ability to take this course and learn so much has really truly been a gift. So let's talk a little bit about first where I am going. So this school is called Open Air Academy, and it is Reggio Emilia, and I'll be teaching 2.5 to 3.5-year-olds. This is exciting to me because they have mixed age classrooms, which is something that is Reggio Emilia centric, and they'll have the ability to really engage with each other in a mentorship sort of way, where they'll have the ability to exchange in that dialogue and grow and learn and copy each other's behaviors and mess up and fumble around kids that are not just in their age bubble. And I think that it's a real privilege to give them the opportunity to experience developmental growth with that wider range of age. Another thing that's special about this school, aside from the fact that it's Reggio Emilia and they have mixed age classrooms, is the fact that it is in a place that is so environmentally stimulating, such as Denver, Colorado, with the mountains and so much going on in the environment and in the outdoors. So they really do have that ability to engage in environment, being the third teacher. But going back to where I was, it wasn't always like this. The preschools that I used to teach at before kind of taught me what not to do, and taught me a lot about what the expected way of doing things is and how damaging it actually can be. I worked in a preschool that had standards that the children had to meet, and they had, by this age you need to be learning this, like you have to count by twos. My kids were 2.5 years old, and they were saying they needed to count by twos by the end of the year. And even if they did gain that skill, they weren't being taught anything about emotional intelligence or emotion regulation. They weren't being taught anything about conflict resolution. They weren't having the permission to be kids or even playing. The kids weren't allowed to use the arts and crafts bin because the other staff didn't want them to make a mess. And for me, that was really difficult because I think that children absolutely should make a mess in their classrooms. So when I was put in this situation and I was put as the lead teacher in this school, I did try and implement some of the ideas that this course has taught me before I even knew that I was implementing Reggio Emilia approaches. I had all of us measure the height of an empire penguin with, because they are 3.5 feet tall, 4.5 feet tall. That might be wrong, actually. I don't remember how tall they are. But we had the penguin life size against the wall, and the children had to measure it using different objects in the room, whether that was their bodies, the blocks, the toys, the cars, and count how tall that they were. Another thing that I did was having that mess area where I did take the arts and crafts out, and they were able to use the glue in the way that the glue was supposed to be used. And even if they, twist it off and thump, we cleaned it up, but they were still able to explore and figure things out on their own. And I think that that is where I am going to start talking about one of the biggest principles, which is that image of the child. The school and I had very different images of the child. In our journal entries, we were talking about all these images of children from different time periods, and I think that I held a very similar image of the child to, excuse me, an image of a child to the way that the Reggio Emilia teachers held their image of the child, which is somebody who is competent. Like the woman from the video kept talking about the competent child. I believe that they are intelligent. I would joke around that some of my best friends are 6 years old. Some of my best friends are 3 years old, because they were interesting and curious and made a difference in the world of the classroom because of the questions that they would ask and that I would honor. But I think the damaging image of the child that other teachers had is what made that initial preschool experience so difficult, because they were not seen as competent and they were not seen as members of society, as people who had voices, who had opinions. This makes me think of the pedagogy of listening, when children actually were afraid to articulate their opinions to teachers and constantly felt like they were being tested because they so rarely are just listened to. And that really broke my heart to read. Because on the other end of things, like it said in the reading, children are not going to care if we have doubts or if we are unsure or if we give the wrong answer, because we are learning side by side with them, and they can feel that and they can experience that. As a child who is trying to navigate the world and sense their identity and where they fit in the picture, they need to have a teacher who believes in them and sees them and wants to talk to them, actually talk to them as an individual. And I think that's how the MAP project became so successful, because the teachers were taking the time to listen and create a dialogue with the children, that they were able to pick out those specific students and say, this one's so good at math, and this one's really good at imaginative solution creating, and they were able to pull them out and have their strengths be what helped those projects develop in creating the maps of the school. And they had children come back and articulate their opinions to other students who listened to them and gave their own ideas and gave their own hypotheses and opinions. And I loved that it said that a hypothesis and a theory can't exist unless it's shared with another human being, because that's so true. Because if everything's just stuck in your own head, you're not actually making a difference. You're not sharing it with the world where it belongs. And I think that that was such a powerful thing to learn, and how strong that is when you're connecting it to Reggio Emilia, because Reggio Emilia is so about the community, and it's about connecting to the community and connecting the teachers, connecting with the parents and connecting with the kids, and the kids are connecting with the teachers while the teachers are connecting with the parents, and the parents are excited about the documentation that they're seeing from their children, that they want to talk to the teachers. And I think that it's just this incredible web. And I think that, again, this makes the fact that I said web makes me think of the curriculum design, that it's a web. Reggio really does know, the Reggio Emilia approach really does approach education in such a smart way, because they're not looking at it as standards and as cut and dry, as, like they said in the reading, the bricks, putting a brick and stacking a brick one on top of the other, that it is a web, that it is the evolution of knowledge and the growth of knowledge does ebb and flow. And there are different turns that it can take and different answers that can be created because of the openness that kids have to learning. Another element that really stood out to me were the cultural mediators for the immigrants. I think that it is outstanding how welcoming the teachers were to immigrants, because I know in America we have a lot of issues with being inclusive to everyone who comes into the classroom. And we have unfortunately, a lot of prejudice about what certain kids can and can't do based off of what they look like and where they come from. I've seen a lot of teachers have that sort of discrimination as soon as a child walks into a room. And not only did these readings express that that's not what happens, but they took it a step further and had the welcoming happen not just the first couple days, like they said, it's every day. It's the whole time we're welcoming these immigrants in. And they are being spoken to in their native tongue by other cultural mediators that come into the classroom. And they're not teaching Spanish, they're not teaching English, they're speaking to the children in a way that makes them excited and feel connected to their country, to the point where they aren't embarrassed to hear their mother or their father talk to them in their native tongue at pickup or drop off, where they are listening to all these languages at once, and that's provoking curiosity from the other kids. They want to learn on their own. It's not being pushed on them. It's just a part of their environment. It's naturally just a part of their daily life that they're hearing all of these different languages. And having somebody who is bilingual or speaks 3 languages, they said in the reading, I wish I could remember this quote off the top of my head. It's not about what the child doesn't know. It's about what the child knows. You're not supposed to focus on how much the child doesn't know. You're supposed to be focusing on how much the child knows. And it's about connecting that knowledge of what they do know and giving them that dialogue and that confidence to be able to communicate that to the rest of their class. And the last thing that really did stand out to me, of course, and obviously, was the documentation elements. I had no idea how to document. When I worked at the Reggio Emilia preschool 2 years ago, they were struggling with documentation. And I, at the time, thought they were doing everything right. I thought that they were perfect because they were so different from the first preschool that I was at that didn't have the arts and crafts and all those things. Like this Reggio Emilia preschool had occupational therapists who were coming in and doing creative projects with the kids. They had a sensory table. They were doing work with light. They were doing work with shadows. They were doing work with all of seeing the classroom with all of their senses, sight, sound, smell, everything was just being activated, and the kids were really allowed to be kids, and all of the teachers were getting down on their level, and they were really engaged in asking questions, and they weren't just giving away answers or rushing through anything. So I thought, this is amazing. This is exactly how school should be. But nothing was really being documented. And so all of the magic that was happening in the classroom was very hard to articulate and prove, for lack of a better word, to the parents. And I remember in the reading when it talked about that hot air balloon, that we have to coax the parents into believing in us, that we know what we're doing. So we have this hot air balloon that we trust is going to hold up all of these kids. But the parents are like, well, I don't know if you have enough fire, and I don't know if that's going to be strong enough, and I'm not really sure how to go about this, letting my one and only child be in this hot air balloon. But the teachers have to prove, and the teachers have to show how the hot air balloon works, so that there's trust and communication among the three groups, students, teachers, and family. And I think that documentation is something that is more important than I ever realized, because it does show the families what we're doing and how much of a difference that it's making, on top of showing the process of the child's development in learning about certain projects and certain elements in the classroom. When a child, for example, is given a camera, and the assumption might be that they're just going to take a picture. But instead, because they're researchers, they might ask, well, what's this button do? Well, why is it like this? Well, why is it shaped like this? Well, what other kinds of cameras are there? And they're going to start that research and start that growth. And we want to be able to document those questions. We want to be able to give them opportunities to find answers to those questions, instead of just say, well, they took some pictures. There's so much more that could happen in that moment. And to go back to the forums, when I was talking about documentation and documenting the teachers, how could kids document the teachers? I think that it would be really cool to give them cameras, or give them something that would help them investigate our lives. They could ask us questions. They could teach us about a story that they know, and we would have to repeat it in some way, or have some sort of memory game. I mean, anything that they would decide on that would show that they are learning about us the way that we so much want to learn about them. And I do believe that when I go to Denver, Colorado, this course will really, truly be so beneficial to me. And I'm so excited to continue taking this course and taking the courses that follow, and continue to apply what I'm learning in the classroom when I'm finally there. I really hope that I become the kind of teacher that honors the 100 languages of children. And I really hope that I become the kind of teacher that is admirable and that children can believe in. Because I really do believe in them. Thank you.